Never again.
This is from the DSA's pressure guide to support Medicare for all. They're saying to do what I've been pushing for the last 2-3 weeks and what they've been ignoring. They're ignoring their own fucking pressure guide. The DSA is ignoring this, and they won't answer this when I tweet it at them, but they'll come at me with an ad hominem attack. That's your DSA? Really? You're proud of yourselves? Do you have a shame button?
Jimmy Dore doesn't give a fuck about you or your struggles. Jimmy Dore is an online brand who is manufacturing controversy because he can make more money now from distinguishing himself from the squad. Jimmy Dore is, and always has, made his marker by being aggressive and antagonistic.
When I was born, there was no Medicare for all. I had to become an activist the moment I was born. In fact, I was organizing when I was in the womb, when I was a fetus puppy. There were many grifters in my life. I found myself on the streets, and I had to form an alliance with the stray cats. But they betrayed me. They were the grifters, taking advantage of my kindness. Never again! Johnny, what's wrong? Are you okay, Johnny?
I was invited to go on the Convo Couch, but I'm in DSA!
So this is what you're going to do. You're going to go onto the show. You're going to call them grifters. You're not going to let Fiorella or Pasta or Spaghetti or whatever his name is have any of it. You're really going to let them have it. Johnny, let's go!
Yeah. Welcome to the Far Left Show, we break it down, zooming through political news in the lockdown, talking to people, solving issues. These are the kinds of views you won't see on your news. Stick around the show, cause things could get crazy. We even have chihuahuas named Dougie and Daisy. We're called the Far Left to scare the neoliberals, but interview candidates from primary to general. We're the Far Left, break it down, come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues affecting this country. We're the Far Left, break it down, come and join us here and now. Johnny, Daisy, Natalie, Dougie, talk issues starting now.
Next guest over here. All right, you know him. He was a backup singer for the NSYNC boys, but then he decided to do his own show. And
you're so ridiculous.
he was whatchamacallit stand-in for Joni Loves Chachi. Johnny Echevarria is here from the Far Left Show.
Okay, Echevarria.
Echevarria.
Right, let me just clarify why I'm here, because I think this is really important. I'm here on behalf of DSA and all those who are angry with the Convo Couch. I just wanted to say, you guys are total grifters, total far-right sympathizers. I'm absolutely appalled. I can't believe I'm on the show doing this right now. I don't get why I'm even here, to be honest.
What does DSA stand for again? I'm sorry, I forgot.
Anti-democratic something. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear in case anyone tries to come at me later.
You got it. You could just play that clip over and over and over again, so therefore they won't hate on you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He
You
just
said
has
you
to
got the
say that out
grifters.
loud.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's here to spy on us for all of DSA. Okay, so yeah, I got a bone to pick with you, DSA. We're gonna talk about that because
Ooh.
I have some issues, and I'm not the only one. But first, I want you to say Johnny Echevarria has a show with his girlfriend Natalie, and it's called The Far Left Show. And you should check it out because we have been bringing on smaller channels who are talking about the things that need to be talked about and are very aware of what's going on the ground. So we've been trying to platform new independent media. They're new, they're young, and they're doing the things Johnny teaches, and that's always wonderful to have. And I think it's important that younger people get involved and that you guys are open to looking at new potential people to listen to, because we don't want to be the only ones. We're not here to just be the only voice you listen to. Of course, we love you for listening to us, but we want to make sure we grow independent media, because this isn't about us monetarily. This is about us actually getting the information to the people, especially the younger people who are also in danger of being completely misdirected and completely co-opted. But let's start off with Biden, right?
Wait, I just want to say something real quick. Also, Johnny Echevarria, his show on The Far Left Show, they interview a lot of candidates and a lot of people out there. It was kind of like what the Convo Couch did a lot when we first got started. We give people a place that they can't find on the mainstream media. Right. We give them a voice. So I just want to say thank you, Jonathan, for doing that, because a lot of these candidates, a lot of these people running for all these type of offices, they got nowhere to go. They can't even get some tape of themselves answering questions. So you provide an avenue for them to elevate themselves, and that's really hard when they're playing against the big boys. So thank you for doing that, by the way. So
thank you. And we're not even original, like you said. You guys did it, and we thank you, honestly, for being inspirations, because I don't think we would have thought of doing this kind of YouTube channel without you guys, without some other people that we're inspired by. So thank you as well.
Thank you, brother.
Awesome. And so many people voted for Biden, Johnny, right? Many people voted for Biden and said they did it to mitigate damage. But Biden is still deporting millions. There's still ICE. We haven't abolished ICE. He's still sanctioning Iran, Venezuela, and Syria. He still hasn't given us the $2,000 that he promised. Now they're saying it's $1,400. Even Bernie is out there saying that it's $1,400. So has anything really changed?
No. Short answer, no. I mean, I'd say that war and imperialism is a bipartisan venture. So let's say like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these different places, it's been Democrat and Republicans who have pushed for these types of imperialist ventures. So in that case, no. I mean, Joe Biden is known to be the person who started his campaign saying that nothing would fundamentally change. And I believe him in that. That's the one thing that I believe Biden when he says. In terms of the $1,400 checks, that was embarrassing that Bernie fell into that sort of Democrat rhetoric and that play. I mean, that one's especially embarrassing because we have so much footage of people saying 2,000 checks right out the door if both of the senators were elected. But in terms of of deportations, that's a really good question of will things be exactly the same? I don't think so.
Right.
But there's a lot of talk, even especially today, of Biden changing some things up in terms of veterans and families of veterans will not be deported, as well as any low, all serious crimes will probably be deported, national security threats, but anything else outside of that, they're saying no. But the thing with that is there's a couple things I have to say about that. One is deportations don't really address the problems in our society. It doesn't address scarcity of resources. It doesn't address poverty. It doesn't address intergenerational trauma, a lot of different things that are much more important than deportation. So even saying we're going to deport people who have committed even murder, rape, child abuse, very intense crimes, I think that we gotta focus on some other things. And sometimes the talk about deportations and things like that distracts from the resources that we should be supplying to our communities.
Yeah. When you say that you don't think if there's a possibilities for things to change in deportations, you don't mean it would be better or worse? when it comes with the Joe Biden, because Joe Biden, along with the Obama administration, deported more people than Donald Trump did. And also, we also talk about the main cause of migration, and that is American imperialism. You know, we were just talking about Ecuador, where we have a dog in the race over there that we're backing, a banker or whatnot. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of those times that we support these leaders in South and Central America, they cause unrest, and there's no stability in the country, and people end up fleeing here. And Joe Biden was just awful when it came to that, when it came to Honduras, whatnot, and in Venezuela. Not to say that, Trump was any better, because that's the policies I thought were the most racist, the Monroe Doctrine and stuff like that. But do you think it will be better or worse under Biden, especially since, he was part of the whole Honduranian coup against Manuel Zelaya?
Yeah, it's tricky. I think that it reminds me of when Obama was first elected and the LGBTQ community thought that things were going to get a lot better, and immediately things did not get better. It took a lot of activism, actually, in order for gay marriage to become legal. So I think that that's not an exact parallel at all, because that's more of a domestic policy, whereas this is foreign policy. I don't know. I'm not very optimistic, but from what they're signaling from the White House right now, it seems like they are trying to make a change. But then again, they lie all the time. I don't know.
They'll make the change maybe like numbers wise or symbolically, but when it comes to continuing our foreign policy, they're still sanctioning these countries, which in turn is going to turn into more immigration issues, that's why we have to get to the root of the problem. But right now, Johnny, there's also a lot of mass censorship. We're demonetized. A lot of other channels like Graham Elwood, the Progressive Soapbox, etc., have also been demonetized. What do you think of mass censorship and the obsession with protecting politicians over people? Look at how big they're making this, because I want you to look at this tweet right here that I have, because here's a video, of these pundits pretty much comparing terrorism in America that happened after, that's happening now, the white domestic terrorist threat, the threat of that, versus what happened during, after 2001, after 9/11, when they were pushing the terror threat, and how they manufactured consent for wars, and how the United States dealt with those threats through drone strikes. They're basically trying to argue that we need to ramp up our strategy when it comes to these white supremacist terrorists. So let's take a look at what they said, and then I'll ask your opinion on it.
It was carried out on. And again, as saying so, John Hyman, that is a bulletin released to all law enforcement earlier this week, that there is, until the end of April, a persistent threat of domestic extremism, domestic terrorism carried out in the ideology and around this belief that the election was fraudulent, that the COVID restrictions are unnecessary. All of those ideologies pushed by Donald Trump. But my question for you is around incitement. We had a policy, and it was very controversial. It was carried out under the Bush years and under the Obama years, of attacking terrorism at its root, of going after and killing, and in the case of Amr al-Awlaki, an American, a Yemeni American, with a drone strike for the crime of inciting violence, inciting terrorism. Mitch McConnell was in the Senate then. He was in the Senate after 9/11 too. How does Mitch McConnell, who understands that the way you root out terrorism is to take on, in the case of Islamic terrorism, kill those who incite it, how does he not vote to convict someone that he said on the floor of the Senate incited an insurrection?
Okay.
So yeah.
That is really CNN's so absurd. It's so hard to watch them these days. I'd much rather watch you all, or watch people on YouTube who actually make sense when they talk about things. I think that I guess what they're saying is they're implying that we have to deal with domestic terrorism as intensely, with that much passion and aggression, as we do foreign wise. I think that You know, that deals with mass censorship
Right.
as you're talking about, because there, as you can see, people have tried to tie leftists with like the far right now. And so it's sort of this idea of they need to assert this cultural hegemony. This is why, like, one of my favorite guys ever is Antonio Gramsci. He was the leader of the Communist Party in Italy. And he came up with this idea that basically added on to the Marxist theory that, well, one of the most important aspects is the cultural aspect and the overall dominant perspective that people are led to believe. And right now, people are led to believe that we need to be dealing with domestic terrorism aggressively.
Right.
And even if it means shutting people out of websites, and, you know, we don't need to know everything about these communities, just get rid of them if they're saying these ridiculous things. That's not good. I mean, that can be twisted, that can be used. That was used in after 9/11, and it was used at the border here, even though it doesn't relate necessarily. They're using this narrative to pressure people into being subordinate, which is smart. I think if I was a world leader, I'd probably do the same. But it's not good.
No, it is smart. But what do you feel about the lines? Because the issue I always had with DSA, for me personally, was that they don't talk enough about foreign policy. But it seems like we practice a lot of our tactics in foreign policy overseas and then just simply brought them home. What are your thoughts about the fact that, you know, they are doing that and that we ignore, like, groups like DSA and sometimes like a lot of the Democrats we met, that they just completely ignore foreign policy
no, they
altogether.
cheer it on.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, yeah, we need to go after these people. Like, I think there's a line between, you know, like, actual threats to what nobody's saying that white supremacy doesn't exist. I mean, we said it on the show. I don't know how many times. Like, yes, it's a thing. It happens. I think it's a very small group of people. I don't think it's the vast majority of Americans. Now, when you have those people, the Capitol riots that happened, that was like, bam, that's it. Like, we can use that, and like now we can go after all these people. But they were already doing it. They were already
overseas,
overreaching when it comes to privacy.
Yeah. Well, I think white supremacy, the way that you defined it, I agree. I would say it is a small portion. I would say that the police and ICE and the military is white supremacy as well. And it actually is extremely overwhelming and dominant. And I think a big part of the issue with the insurrection is it led liberals and even some people on the left to cheer on the FBI, to support the FBI and the military, where they are not our friends. They are not supporting us, and they have actually killed plenty of leftists historically, and have deported and ostracized plenty of people. But I think DSA was mentioned here, and I agree 100%. I think DSA needs to take stronger stances, especially in terms of like foreign entanglements that we have. But I have this whole list that I wanted to bring up of things that I don't think DSA has done really well. These are some failures, and I'm actually pulling from someone on the East Side, Hector Rivera, who wrote this article titled "The Failures of DSA Are Going to Get Us Killed." So one of the failures is DSA did not participate in Occupy ICE in 2018. Which was basically protesters occupying detention centers, which I think was 100% involved with, like, you know, human rights violations. We have DSA failing to act during the pandemic, which they failed to establish mutual aid networks that help communities, the elderly, and nurses who were fighting for PPE. And they also failed during BLM. They should have established a second front and brought all their members in, as well as making Medicare for All the top priority in order to support Black lives, because Medicare for All supports Black lives. Force the Vote should have been up there as well.
Yep.
DSA has also failed with police murders as well. We are not centering voices from the Afro-socialists, socialists of color, and I think that's important, again, for addressing issues that are going on either in the Middle East and Latin America, because that would come up more if leadership paid attention to
absolutely.
Yeah. So those are some of my issues. Again, DSA has done a few things right, but there's a lot of room for growth. And
another thing they didn't do is speak out for Julian Assange and for, you know, the infringement upon our civil liberties, and specifically the freedom of the press. I mean, as somebody that is involved in that's so dependent on that, and you too, and all of us as Americans, to have the flow of information so people can learn about what DSA is or what they aren't, or what Medicare for All is or what it isn't. We need to have that flow of information, and if that is under threat, that needs to be, as a leftist, like leftists used to be anti-censorship, like the left used to be the ones that say no, like I gotta speak my mind. Now it's turned into leftists cheering for this censorship, and it's really, really scary, because that is how you co-opt these movements and bring them back into the establishment fold, and you shut down the voices. You make them fringe, you make them unreliable, you discredit the witness, you discredit the people that are doing these things like we're doing, by saying, oh, they're fringe, they're all right, they're Nazis, whatever it is you're saying. But that is how you really destroy the flow of information.
Yeah, it's fun when it happens to people on the right, but I think the issue is that the government actually does still lean more right, and they don't actually want leftist voices to be carried across the country. So yeah, you're right. They'll totally get us. They'll do their best.
Well, the whole thing that we have to say that the government is not, is far more right, is that the left just keeps abandoning these issues that, now, like, some people on the right are picking up, like protection of our civil liberties, what I'm saying, and making sure, like, where are the people on the left speaking out for Julian Assange? Why is it just a few members on the right and then one person on the left who's now gone? So I think that's one thing that DSA has to pick up to as well, is making sure that we protect our civil liberties, making sure we do pay attention to what's going on overseas, because it does come back and affect us at home the way it has.
I think the left is more, right now we're still pretty upset about Jimmy Dore talking to the Boogaloo Boy. So
right.
Once we get over that, we'll focus on censorship.
All right. Well, let's take a look at this other tweet real quick, too. I want you to pay attention to this, too, as well, because talking about civil liberties right now and people getting demonetized or censored, whatnot. So our friend Cullen left a tweet over here. It says, so Marjorie Taylor Greene has apologized for her crazy QAnon conspiracy theories. Yeah, good. Okay. Has Hillary Clinton, queen of warmongering, ever apologized for her Russia hysteria? Has she ever apologized for baselessly, calling Tulsi Gabbard an agent of the Kremlin? And, I'm wondering if Joe Biden will ever apologize for saying there were weapons of mass distraction, over in friggin' whatchamacallit in Iraq, and going over there. So we see a precedent set over here.
Or the outlets, the journalists, the propagandists, the pundits talking about Russiagate for the last 4 years. Did they ever apologize for that conspiracy theory? I mean, here's the question with that too: is Marjorie Taylor Greene a distraction?
Yeah. Well, Rachel Maddow is definitely one of my favorite pundits that loves to push the Russiagate. She's fun to watch.
Amazing.
I'm excited. Yeah, but I think so Marjorie Greene, she I personally think she's a total weirdo who should not be in Congress based off of her political stances. But I personally think that her narrative is a lot more dangerous, actually, than the Russian narrative for the stability of our country, and for several reasons. I think that, one, it targets liberal members of Congress, but not so much conservative members of Congress. And so I feel like if that movement builds up more, it would actually start to take away from the wins that marginalized communities should be getting at some point. But as for Hillary Clinton's narrative, I personally despised it because it was ultimately used against the Bernie Sanders campaign, Jill Stein's campaign, and that's extremely anti-democratic. I think both are terrible, but the first one is more dangerous to the stability of our country, I think so.
Yeah, but the other one saber rattling with the other nuclear power over there. I mean, we can't underline that right there.
That's true. That's true. I think I mean, these are just narratives that they're feeding the people. I think it's better to scapegoat somebody outside of our country rather than someone inside. I don't like either. I'm not saying one's necessarily better, but possibly for the stability of the country.
So the way I see the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing is as a distraction being used to pretty much further divide the not the the establishment parties, but the people. Because when you have people focused on Marjorie Taylor Greene, I mean, you had the vast majority of Americans that were Democrat focused on the boogeyman Donald Trump, right? You had him, Donald Trump, oh yeah, he's evil. And then now look at all these Trumpers, they're all Q. So Trump's gone, so who are you going to focus? Who's your boogeyman now? Oh, that's right. We got to find Marjorie Taylor Greene. There you go. She's a good one. She's holding a gun in front of the squad, you know? Okay, that's something that she should be reprimanded for, perhaps. Yeah, as a congresswoman, yeah. But what she said, what they're going after her for, isn't really... I don't think it's QAnon conspiracy theories, because you could say that Russiagate was a conspiracy theory. You could say manufacturing consent for the wars was a conspiracy, but they're going after her because she's questioning the elections. And that's something that, you know, that I think it's dangerous, because she should be allowed, anybody should be allowed to question the elections. Now, you have 75 million people. The vast majority of those people don't think the election was fair. So they have the right to question the elections. Now, if they're asking their Congress people, hey, we don't believe the election was fair, it is the duty of that public servant to say, you know what, let's hear you out. So by bringing in the questioning of our elections, that's something that anybody should be able to do. I think they're using QAnon to discredit this woman, and I don't agree with her in ideology at all. But what I do have to say is she seems like the new boogeyman. Her little feud with AOC is just this whole distraction. Meanwhile, we still don't have a stimulus. We still don't have fucking healthcare. We still aren't getting heard. And it's this giant distracted push. And yet, because the Democrats seem to always need a boogeyman to focus on, like, you have to focus on some right-wing boogeyman. So meanwhile, they don't tell you the failures of the Biden administration, because the mainstream media isn't going to talk about it. And then, of course, the people that are talking about this whole thing, we get censored. So I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is a giant distraction. I'm not dismissing that she could have, you know, she shouldn't have gone on there with a gun and taken it and propped up a picture. But I think that is also part of the whole theatrics that this pretty much government has become.
Yeah, and her saying is that the government is lying to you right now, whatnot. And how many times has the government lied to us? You know what I'm saying? That's the underlying thesis of everything that's going on. Your government's lying to you. Russiagate was your government lying to you about another country that has the second most nuclear weapons, whatnot, and we shouldn't be saber rattling with them. And like Fiorella said, it's all about not talking about the elections, because what we talk about, election reform, just getting reforms on the elections. Nobody's talking about the systemic issues within the elections and how we can fix them. They don't want to change things, both establishment Republicans and establishment Democrats, and they're just trying to go along with that. So for me, seeing what they're going after her for, I mean, we could just look at these people who have these QAnon conspiracies and say, like, yeah, whatever, bro, I don't believe you. You know what I'm saying? But have they really caused violence? Or has the lie of weapons of mass destruction killed over 1 million Iraqis? You know what I'm saying? So one, I think, is heavier than the other. That's just my personal opinion.
No, I like that. I wanted to say it's interesting. There's this concept by Friedrich Nietzsche. He wrote about this in The Antichrist, and it's about slave morality versus master morality. And he actually talks about, really quick, this is just something I was learning about. It actually goes along with this. He says that people who care for the weak and for the poor, like you mentioned, how you dislike the war because it killed so many innocent people. He said that's a very Christian value, and it's actually a bad value to have. You actually need the master morality, which you protect your country and your state, but you should be you should be an atheist, and you should also not worry about the weak. So I feel like you guys are actually a lot more Christian than the establishment.
Yeah, right. Because we're looking at it. Well, I don't see a separation between our foreign and domestic, because it's exactly our foreign policy that they're now bringing into domestically, and that started to happening when we were covering the protests, when we saw the Fed coming in and basically gassing everybody that was there with actual ammunition, like ammunition that is hazardous, harmful, like weapons of war. They brought those weapons, and that is a fraction of what we do abroad. And you're right, that is, I mean, it's not, I'm not a Christian at all, but I for me, it's a matter of like, if we're going to talk about white supremacy, if you're going to pat yourself on the back for being a loyal Democrat and saying, well, I voted for Joe Biden, the author of the 1994 crime bill, the guy who was really pro-war in Iraq, and then you're not going to take a look at what we're doing to these countries in the Middle East, it's the same thing that Trump was doing or worse. A lot of people in Syria are saying things are going to get worse under a Biden administration. So to me, it's hypocritical. It's like you're only looking at one side of it, right? You're not looking at the other. And so right now people are really poor and they don't have a lot of things to do and a lot of mechanisms of you can't really go out there and protest as much. There's a lot of, push to stay home still. They don't have a stimulus. They don't have health care. And there was this tweet, Johnny, that this person, I can't pull it up in here. It's not coming up. Okay, so I guess the tweet was unavailable, but it was basically this guy that was tweeting that his wife had been sexually assaulted. And because there was a lawsuit that they gained some money for that assault, that they weren't getting this money, this stimulus. And it's crazy that's happening under the Biden administration. Yeah. It's crazy that so many things are happening under the Biden administration. They counted
it as salary, in other words. The money she made from the settlement was counted as salary, so therefore they were denying her a stimulus check because of the lawsuit.
So are people propelled enough to do you think, to organize and actually have, whether it's a general strike or whether it's some sort of, movement against the government? Or do you think people are still going to sit back and wait and see what happens?
Whew, that's a big question. I think that in my local area, I'm the DSA coordinator for the east side of Los Angeles. And I think that a lot of people here are excited to organize. But the main issue, I think, is that National needs to set up a better structure for people to get involved, especially right now. I was talking to someone who wants to start having sit-ins, who wants to go talk about socialism like at parks and public areas, obviously socially distanced and with masks on, but actually be out there. Because a lot of times people in DSA are better at working at call centers for campaigns than they are for going out and really being bold about socialism. And our goal as socialists is to get out there, take those risks, and let people see that and be influenced to continue to advocate for themselves and for others in that same way. So I think what you're saying is we need to pull that energy out of us, because I think we have it for this moment. We just need to unlock it.
Well, staying on that topic right now, let's talk about the divide between MPP and DSA. Our Ryan Knight left a little tweet up the other day. He says, "I'm stepping back from my advisory council of the People's Party. I believe we need a viable third party in America that represents the interests of the people, not corporations. But I believe it must be rooted in socialism. I wish them nothing but solidarity in their vision." Fam, did you have anything to say about this real quick before Johnny answers this right now? Because I think there was a little bit more talk.
Right. So I just wanted to show Pasta to his other tweet on DSA, because people were like, well, DSA, and he's like, yeah, but I don't, like, DSA doesn't do it for me either. And he said, I don't see the benefit of organizing mass movements into capitalist party that kills them. I've supported local DSA chapters when they push for policies and initiatives, but I disagree with them socialist national strategy of funneling movements into the Democratic Party to die. Ooh. Okay, Johnny, first of all, your thoughts on both of these statements, both MPP and the criticisms of DSA.
Okay. So MPP with Ryan the Socialist, total grifter, again, one of those grifters on social media. Just kidding. I love his tweets. I think he's on point with his ideas. As for the organizational structure of MPP, I actually don't know too much about it because I haven't gotten involved with it. I know that Our Revolution brought up that there were a lot of issues, so they actually pulled out of the MPP.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what might happen if political commentators and podcasters sort of start a movement without bringing too many organizers in. Now that might seem like kind of a, I don't know, offhand comment, but it could be true. I mean, if there's no bylaws, no rules, no transparency, then people aren't going to buy into that.
Yeah, I mean, 100% when it comes to just MPP, real quick, Pasta and I, we were aware of the shortcomings of MPP. We didn't, advocate against them or anything, but we just kind of stepped aside and said, all right, we have our concerns with MPP. We interviewed Nick Brana. We always like to show both sides. But here's the thing with MPP, one of the things I knew talking to organizers and actually being on the ground was that yeah, there was that lack of connection between organizers and a lot of the MPP people, and I knew that was going to come back and bite them in the ass, because you cannot build a movement just on social media. It has to be on the ground, and that was always a criticism. We said, like, no, we got to get some of these organizers to trust, and a lot of them just did not like Nick Brana, and they refused to work with him. And no matter how much I try to be like, okay, here, talk to this person and that person, it just didn't work out. Now, I have my issues with our revolution in general. I feel the same way, if not worse than DSA. They are the national organization, I know for a fact, is entirely co-opted. They were extremely against force of the vote. I have friends who work in local ORs that were trying to push force of the vote that got reprimanded heavily, saying Jimmy Dore is not our friend, like all these things like that are so stupid. Like, it's Medicare for all is your thing, like you're not pushing for it. When it comes to DSA though, Johnny, do you think, what is your answer to that? Because that is my criticism of DSA. Yeah. I do not believe in the Democratic Party. I believe that, we're talking about socialism. It is antithetical to what the Democratic Party represents. How do you rationalize building something like democratic socialism or socialism within the confines of the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I saw that tweet where Ryan the Socialist was, or Ryan Knight, I always call him Ryan the Socialist. He said that basically DSA funnels people into the Democratic Party for movements to die. And then I know Jabari Brisport commented, and here he replied, and he said, oh, I was a Green Party candidate and DSA supported me. And then I was a Democratic candidate and DSA supported me and I won. And it was like, okay, great. You were a Green Party candidate. He was the one Green Party candidate that they supported.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's one, but we need to step it up. We need to actually support Green Party. I think people in, like we mentioned, the Socialist Alternative, a bunch of different groups, we actually really need to get in there. And if national won't do it, then we'll do it locally. And that's what we're really working on right now, is bringing people together and starting our own organizations and groups that are not, at the moment, not beholden to any big interests. We'll see what happens, though.
I like the local move.
Yeah.
Do it locally. You know what I'm saying? Because, what Fee was just saying right over there, and what you just talked about too as well, is that it was in that charter for DSA to force the vote of sorts.
Right.
Then when they forced the vote, DSA was nowhere to be found. They actually backed off it because it seemed like it was anti-democratic party for them, fam. I don't know. So
yeah, and let's just talk about that for a second, because it was weird when we went to DC. There was a couple of DSA people. One of them was actually carrying a sign like "Force the Vote." But they were like, we know a lot of the DSA leadership isn't supporting force the vote, but we are. So there's also, once again, just like in unions and just like in any org, the national, but the leadership versus the membership is a little bit different, and there's that power struggle too as well. Can you speak more? How does DSA combat that? Because where I stand right now, I'm not really trusting of DSA. I'm not trusting, I'm not going to sit there and focus my energy on bringing them down at all. But I do think there needs to be like a push to be like, okay, are we going to do direct actions? Because the moment is here to where people need leadership to go towards direct actions, and they don't trust really central type of orgs that get so easily co-opted to lead that struggle.
Well, this is why I like you guys, because you bring up these types of criticisms for DSA that I don't find anywhere else, really. And I think that people in DSA, first off, just the membership, rank and file membership, need to relax and not take these criticisms so seriously. I was talking to our communications director for DSA LA, and we were like, we got to come up with like a workshop or something to teach people how to productively engage with people who criticize DSA online. Because I think we're turning away a lot of membership actually by acting so aggressive towards people who talk about force the vote or Jimmy Dore or whatever else. But I think that we need to build that movement within DSA and ask for, not just ask, but aggressively push for a relationship of correspondence between national DSA and rank and file members. Because right now, it's sort of like the Democratic Party itself. And so it's difficult to get our voices heard 100%. So we're really pushing for that.
Right. That's the thing. That's what a lot of people don't know. And that's why we want to bring you on, is that DSA is just like any other organization. There are voices being shut out too. Yeah. So like, this is why when people are like, oh, screw DSA, the whole thing. I'm like, listen, like, I know people locally who do great things, but the organization as a whole, I don't trust. And I just wanted to show you this. This is one aspect. This is an example of how you don't act. This person is DSA, and this person said to Ryan Knight, they called him. They said, I'm not even going to say it. This is Hot Girl Meg. She's a DSA member. This DSA person retweeted Hot Girl Meg. I'm sorry. And they said, oh, hell nah. This Lil F just pissed me off. And so they called him the F word, right? And multiple people attacked him, right? For pointing out that it doesn't make sense to organize movements. And that's his opinion. If you have a way to say, well, this is going to help this way, then that's fine. But to call somebody names just because they're giving a fair constructive criticism, like I said, that's my criticism too, is exactly how you do not talk to people, right? So if you have anything to say to people who are like turned off by DSA because this is like the attacks they're getting.
Yeah. There's bad apples in every group. I think those are definitely the bad apples. If we put that workshop that I mentioned together, we're going to use those as what not to do. I think it's embarrassing. It's humiliating. I condemn those statements, and I think anyone in DSA should condemn people who are attacking others for like just simple strategic disagreements. Like, they got to relax. If we're really socialists, we shouldn't be using that language, and we should be bringing people in. Incredibly inclusive is what we're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right. Open to educating people.
I think we got to stop with the cancel culture across the board. I say we have to be comfortable with uncomfortable conversations, get in there and talk to people. That includes even talking to everybody on all sides of the political spectrum. Johnny, thank you so much for joining us today. You're awesome. Tell everybody out there where they can find you and find more of you. And I hate this whole COVID. I haven't been able to see you since the Democratic convention when we were just like, we were chilling with Johnny and Natalie in the streets. Tell us where we can find you.
Find us at The Far Left Show on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You can find my Instagram, Jechava. That's Jechava. Best places to find us. I want to thank you, Fiorella, Pasta, Johnny is back there. Anyone else who's part of the Convo Couch, y'all rock. It's been amazing to see how you've like skyrocketed in subscribers, and like the quality of your show is just like going up and up and up. You guys are doing great, an inspiration to us. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for bringing in your perspective. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we love you, man. You're amazing, and we hope to see more of you, buddy.
Yeah.
You really are.
Take care. Love you guys.
Love you too. Oh, there's my big face right there.
And we we don't agree with Johnny on everything. Clearly, like there was some pushback with MTG and all these things. Like, and it's not even like I'm defending MTG. I just think that they're manipulating, the Democratic Party is manipulating this whole thing. But again, Johnny is one of the people that when on neoliberal Facebook, which is like it's a bunch of Democrats now on Facebook, he's always like, no, the Convo Couch needs to be there. Why? Because we push back on this. Like everybody else that's in the synthetic left. They're all DSA, but they don't ever criticize DSA. They don't ever criticize Bernie. They don't criticize AOC. It's like for us, it's like, they say that we're far right, but we're actually further to the left because we're telling you, my issue with DSA is I don't believe in putting a socialist construct under a capitalist. Like what? How does that work under the Democratic Party? But what their whole thing is that they're trying to basically push that into the Democratic Party. Now, I think the Democratic Party is just too far gone. But you also have to pay attention, Pasta. We have to admit, MPP, the Green Party, and all these third parties don't have their shit together. Yeah. They don't have their shit together, fam.
But I want to say one thing. He has his shit together. This guy has always been this way. I remember talking to him at the Democratic Convention when he didn't even know that I was going to be supporting Tulsi and why, and we started talking about the issues. And he was just so open to it and understanding and stuff like that.
That's how people should be.
He's very comfortable with uncomfortable situations. He even brought it on the show. We have to stop our members from flipping the fuck out and going crazy right here and just have conversations like what you brought up with that person saying, oh, they immediately attack. It's the cancel culture. It's bullshit. We need to stop that stuff. And that's what I've always loved about Johnny, because he's always willing to talk to everybody, regardless of their opinion or not. And that's the way it should be, fam. That's the way it should be, right?
Yep.